All right, so I'm your host again for whatever this series is going to be, but my whole point of making these videos is to kind of give some information, kind of give my opinion, provoke some thought, and get people to think about what the right or wrong thing to do on any given hot button topic might be. So this topic is going to be about COVID vaccines. More specifically, a mandate to get the vaccine. Whether the government has the authority to mandate a vaccine for anyone, specifically like healthcare workers. Can they make somebody get the vaccine? So I wanted to put this one out there. I heard an argument that stated that, like in healthcare, a patient has the right to know if the person that's providing care for them has the vaccine or not. And somebody was stating that a healthcare provider has a duty to create a safe environment for the patient. They even gave an example of, being mandated to get the chickenpox vaccine because they worked in proximity to children. Not that healthcare worker provided services to children, but like on the other side of the wall from them would be kids that may or may not have chickenpox or could get chickenpox. Now, to mandate that you have to put something in your body is kind of against the whole idea that you own your body. And you'll hear this in the My Body, My Choice for abortion rights and stuff like that. And I think there's a lot of validity to My Body, My Choice, even if it was going to be used to be applied to women wanting to get their tubes tied, for example. Currently, it's very difficult for a single woman who's young to get her tubes tied because doctors will refuse to do it because they're young and they may change their mind, or they're married or something like that and they want their husband to sign off on it. And it's just like really weird stuff, because even if you're married, it's still the woman's body. And I say this because even if you're married, the husband can still rape his wife because she still has to give consent. So it is her body, and she has to consent to something as simple as sex, or I should say intercourse. So, but the whole point of getting married is, traditionally, is so that you can have intercourse, because the major religion belief is that you should wait until you're married to have intercourse. Now we're married and you still may not get intercourse. So it brings up an issue of, is it your body, your choice? And if it's your body, your choice, can you still choose to do a career and maintain my body, my choice? So if I were a doctor and I worked in the healthcare industry and I wanted to save people, and serve people, by helping them heal or get fixed or maintain their health, or, whatever it might be that I do for services, am I required to get a vaccine that some government entity or even society thinks will protect them? And so we have this issue, even if you do get the vaccine, not only can you still get infected, but you can still pass on and cause infection in other people. So does the vaccine even protect the patient that is claiming you need to get it to protect them? And there's an argument that it might not. So what would really be the reason for mandating a vaccine that doesn't do 100% or 75% or 25%? It really doesn't matter what the number is, because if it's not 100%, then it doesn't guarantee any safety for a patient. Furthermore, when you're talking about COVID and it being an illness that can cause death, influenza can cause death. And it does. It has caused deaths, even in America. I think it caused a couple hundred thousand deaths a year, or even if it's just tens of thousands of deaths, which I'm pretty sure it's a six-figure number. Do I have a duty to protect somebody from something that is not controllable? So it's too late. There's so many variants of COVID, just like there are lots of variants of the flu vaccine or flu, that you can't get rid of the flu with flu vaccines. We've had a flu vaccine for like 80 years or something, and we haven't gotten rid of the flu. The COVID virus has gotten into enough variants, we can't stop the COVID virus either. So, and I mean SARS-CoV-2. I'm going to keep calling it COVID, even though it's not the right way to say it. So, what is the issue? Does a patient have a right to know if their caregiver has a vaccine? Or does a caregiver have a right to keep their medical history private? And, should you have to broadcast your medical history to anyone? And I would say that this is where the needs of somebody may not trump the rights of an individual. So where do your rights begin and where do your rights end and another rights begin? And people will say they end when it infringes on someone else's rights. So does a third person have a right to know your vaccine status? And I would argue that, just in the common sense of law, the answer is no. I have a right to privacy from government or others. I cannot be compelled without my consent to disclose information to any private person. Now, a court can come in and demand that they can say, we demand that you give up some information or we'll hold you in contempt. But that doesn't mean that because the courts use contempt powers that whatever they're asking for is right. So if it's still not right or unjust, then the person should go to jail for improperly exercised contempt powers. So for example, I don't have a right, or let's say I don't have a right. I cannot be compelled to testify against my spouse. In law, we're kind of incorporated, we're the same person, and my wife has a right to not have self-incrimination. I also have a privileged relationship with her, so I'm gonna know stuff, that she can't maintain her privacy while in a marriage to me. So she has no expectation of privacy for the most part, as if she were single, or if it were you. If it were you, you have an expectation of privacy from me, but my spouse doesn't have that same expectation because we live in close proximity and we have a relationship where there's too much stuff that's shared. So I can't be compelled to testify against my spouse. But if I were to go into court and a judge were to order me to testify against my spouse or hold me in contempt, I'm going to have to be held in contempt because the judge is asking me, or the court is demanding me do something that violates my rights and my wife's rights. So even in that particular case, I would have to be tricked into consenting. This is the same way when a cop comes to your house and doesn't have a search warrant. He can still ask, is it okay if I search your house? And he can try to come up with reasons why you should give him consent. And it could be, there was somebody that was in here. We just want to make sure that they didn't leave some contraband behind or some stuff that you might be held accountable for, like drug paraphernalia or whatever the heck. And you're like, well, maybe that's a good idea, and you want to consent to it because you think that's what they're going to be doing. But in reality, they're going to be going through all your stuff, looking for stuff to pin on you. They can say whatever they want to get into your house to get the search, but they still need your consent, and they can try to trick you to do it. But it still needs your consent because they can't do it by force without a search warrant. And even when they have a search warrant, that just tells them that they can do it by force. They can still be wrong. The search warrant can still be invalidated, and everything that they got from the search can be squashed, which means to be put aside and not be usable by the state. So anyway, I'm kind of off tangent again, but I'm trying to go over rights. So if you can be compelled by force or law to put something in your body, is it really your body? If you're not free to make the choice, and choice means consent, it's not your body. If somebody else can make the choice for you, whether it's government or your employer or anything. Now, your employer can make you, I don't want to say make you, they can make a condition that in order for you to be their employee, you have to do these things, because then you have a choice whether to be employed by that person. But you also have the choice to start your own business doing the same thing and compete against your employer or your prospective employer. So you've got options. Some of them aren't realistic. I happen to work in an area where I don't have to deal with people, and I don't have to worry about needing the vaccine in order to have a job. However, when you tell a whole entire industry where people have invested tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of dollars into their education to be in an industry, and then kick them out because they don't want you to force them to do something that's against their whatever they think their best interest is, then that's kind of wrong. It's unfair to do that to somebody, because now you're basically saying, hey, I know you put up all this money and training and time and everything to become a doctor, for example, but you're not going to be able to be a doctor anymore because you don't want to get the COVID vaccine, or any vaccine for that matter, whatever that it might be, or to put anything in your body. It doesn't even have to be a vaccine. Where does the line get drawn? So I wanted to put this out there kind of to get people to think and kind of get exposed to different sides of an issue, to really think about where does somebody's rights end and another person's begin. I have no right to force you to give me information about you. No right. I could come up to you and say, hey, who the heck are you? Like, what's your name? You don't have to give me your name. Okay, so if you don't have to give me your name, why do you have to give me your vaccine status? I mean, name is easy. Who cares if most people know what your name is? But it does matter if you have a tetanus vaccine, a flu vaccine, smallpox vaccine, chickenpox vaccine, MMR, whatever that it is. Those things is your business. I should say those things are your business, not someone else's. So just something to think about. If you want to give that information, that's your choice. But you have to respect everyone else's right to make their own choice about the information that they want to disclose, or do you? Because if you don't want to respect everyone else's right to choose what information that they want to disclose, it may come that you're going to be required to disclose information you don't want to give up. Like, what were you doing last night at 2 o'clock in the morning? You might have been out getting into some stuff that you regret. But hey, anybody could ask that question, and you have no right to say, none of your damn business. How freeing is it for somebody to come up and want to get in your business, and you get the freedom to say, it's none of your damn business. Anyway, those are my thoughts.